So in this short video, we're going to take a look at the different topics, especially their guiding questions, because it's going to be really important for you to pick a focus category that works for you, that really adds on, hopefully, to what you did in Unit 1, or as well is something that you can utilize going forward into the next unit on the Great Depression or onto the Cold War finally. So you really can't go wrong with these three, but you need to understand that you're going to be responsible for answering these 5 questions not only in Noodle tools using your sources, but also in class, in an in-class assessment. So you want to be able to answer these questions really with authority in a 40-minute class period, and that's why you want to read through these closely. So number 1, diplomacy is the really like foreign relations, international relations between a country. So these can be positive relations, negative relations. These can be military relations and economic relations as well. It's important that you have diplomacy separate from World War I, because the World War I topic could really be and really should be its own focus. And for diplomacy, we're looking at things within this time period that are either before or after World War I. So like for some example with the USA, when we looked at Hawaii and we looked at the Spanish-American War, those would be things that are perfect for this time period, the big stick diplomacy in Panama Canal. But World War I obviously should fall into this World War I category. Speaking of World War I, you are really going to want to focus on World War I for what the role was of your country. Were they neutral? Were they not really impacted at all? Were they impacted even if they were neutral? Were they a participant in the war? And how did the war affect that country, right? You're going to have a choice here with economy, politics, or society. What were the different perspectives about the war? And what changed for your country's international status? Did they join the League of Nations? Or were there, did they lose or gain allies based off of the war? Or were their allies strengthened or weakened? So you have some choices within these topics. So you want to read through these carefully here, okay? Just to go through as a quick overview, we'll do all 3 really briefly here, but starting with international economics. What were the country's key exports and imports during this time period? You need to know what's coming into the country, what is leaving the country. What role did foreign investment, foreign loans, or foreign trade agreements play in the countries during this time period, right? Who was investing? Who was trading with your country? And what did that look like? What was the impact there? How did the global economy affect this country? So, right, like not just like a specific foreign country or not just like an imperial power. How did the general global economy of this time period impact your country? And was your country dependent on a single commodity or trade partner? And if you're going to answer this question saying nope, you really want to be able to answer this question saying, who was their number one trade partner? Who was their number one commodity? Don't sit there and say, well, they had 5 different topics. They had 5 different products, even though they mostly sold coffee. That means that they mostly sold coffee. Focus on that commodity. What were the risks or consequences of coffee being their number one commodity? Don't try not to like skate out of this one by being like, yeah, they had more than one commodity. So I'm just going to say, no, they weren't. And how did the economic change? Do you have a choice here? How did the economic changes impact local workers in your country, industries in your country, or even class structures, social hierarchies at this time period? These are the 5 questions for international economics. For the diplomacy and war, again, not focusing on World War I, what was the major foreign policy goals during this time period? Was your country expanding? Were they trying to stay neutral? Were they trying to, right? Alliances, treaties, rivalries, who were this country's friends, enemies, and otherwise during this time period? Did they participate in any wars or military conflicts, including civil wars? What was the cause? What was the outcome of these? Again, not looking at World War I over here. Other conflicts. How did the government balance between national interests and international obligations? This is really going to be like what we looked at with like different causes or factors of economic expansion in the United States, or even like how America had to be torn between wanting to be neutral in World War I and fulfilling its obligations to allies, to the allies, right? Like, and then how is the country perceived, right? Like, what was the perspective of other countries on your country during this time period? So you might need to find different sources for some of these, as you're sort of seeing here. And for World War I, we talked about it briefly. You have some choices here, but what was the country's role? What was the impact of the war on economy or politics or society? What were the internal debates and divided perspectives? What happened to the country's status? And what was the outcome of the war? How did that change your country's foreign or domestic policy in the 1920s? So these are the topics that you need to come up with. And so it's really important for you to make a choice that will really help you generate keywords and search the databases to answer these questions. So what I'm going to show you next is just my journal entry here. My journal entry here was, I'm still doing South Africa. My goal still is not really in this time period because I'm looking for how apartheid came about in South Africa, even though that happens later. So I'm going to be doing topic 3, looking at World War I. But specifically, I'm trying to look at how World War I impacted race relations in the country. So I'm going to end up probably like doing more of the domestic policy over here. How did the war affect society, right? Like I've already decided which of these I'm answering, even here at the very step 1. I actually found a lot of resources on diplomacy and war in the Unit 1 research. So I'm not just going to like use those again because you can't use the same sources again. I want to build on my past research here. So I also looked back at my past journal entries to see like, okay, what was my goal in this, what was my goal at the end of the last unit research? What were some things that I tried that I didn't do well on? What were some things that I did well with? And I know that using JSTOR is going to be critical because, again, we're going to have at least one article come from JSTOR, an article that you evaluate and annotate and make an annotated bibliography on. So knowing how to find a good source on JSTOR is a major goal for me here. So again, you can check out the videos and including this video and see some of these responses, and hope you thought this video was useful. Let me know what questions you have.